mean that they are for you.
Oh, kinfolk, great kinfolk, boy.
Because they don't care about it. When I was 17, I think, my mom lived down the street from Trayvon Martin's parents. When I saw that on the news, I was like, damn, I have to have this conversation with my brother. Like, it's serious. And I did have the conversation with him for years. I had the conversation with him up until he moved here to California. My brother never had a key to my apartment because he loses everything. So he would come and he would sit outside my apartment and wait for me to come home. He would let me know that he was sitting there. He also would call me every time the police stopped him to find out why he was sitting there. And I would tell him to stay on the phone with me and put me on speaker so I can let them know that you are my brother. You're not suspicious. You live with me. And they would say, well, why doesn't he have a key? He specifically asked to not have a key because he knew that he would lose it. And I had to tell him because he asked me one day, like, I was just sitting here, I wasn't doing anything. And I said, I know, sweetheart, but you're black. That's what you were doing. You know, I wasn't asked to be born with darker skin. I did not ask to be black. I don't wake up in the morning and put on my skin color. But you wake up in the morning and you put on a uniform with a badge and you leave to go to work and you had a video on his birthday and videotape it, record it. Unfortunately, this is what I have to teach my children because they don't understand why their uncle is gone. They don't understand why the people that we're supposed to call when we need help and you dial 911 could probably kill you because of your skin color. Because they think that you are a threat. But we are a threat, aren't we? Right? They're afraid of us. And that's why they keep killing us. My brother was not a threat. He was at the bus station, probably coming to my house or going to work. Someone was afraid of him, and they called, and they said that my brother had a weapon. I do not believe my brother had a weapon. And they still to this day would tell me that there is no video footage, and there is nothing. But I did find out from someone who does not want to be mentioned that my brother had on a blue t-shirt and a backpack in his hand when he was murdered. The photo that they showed me, my brother had on a tank top. Wow, you guys lied about that too, huh? So I'm gonna conclude with a reflection that I posted on Facebook the day he died. Well, a year from the day he died. So on this day at 2 a.m., my heart was shattered to pieces. One cousin sent me a DM and another one called me. Before she even uttered which family member was gone, I was already in tears. She mentioned your name and who took your life. The phone fell out of my hands and I had an anxiety attack. I was shaking, I was hyperventilating, and I couldn't control it. My daughters woke up and they just hugged me. They didn't even ask me what happened. They held me very tight, and I just thought, how could I tell them who had taken their uncle away from them? I held them, and they hugged me and wiped my tears until I calmed down. I was able to tell them what happened, and in that same notion, I called two of my best friends, and they began to do a search on the internet to find anything pertaining to what had happened. I called my mother right after, and then his father. He was more than just my little brother. I lost one of the best friends that I've ever had. My siblings went with me everywhere when I was younger, and my brother aspired to be just like me. He would even listen to the same music that I listened to, and he adopted my favorite colors. He always wanted to wear the same shoes as me. When I got married in 2015, he walked me down the aisle. And when I decided that I wanted to leave my abusive marriage, I confided in him, and he confirmed my final decision. He only moved to California to help me with my children and to finish school and to make his life worth living. He loved to go to In-N-Out Burgers, and he loved the view of the mountains from my apartment. He would order 4 pizza boxes for us because he knew that he can eat 2 boxes by himself. I would watch him do push-ups with my daughters on his back, and they would fight over who would go first. He would lay at the foot of my bed and just talk to me, and I can hear him saying, "Sis, please braid my hair. I promise I'll wash it." He would never let me take out my own trash or wash my own dishes. I could leave my house all day, and I would come home and he would have cleaned up my entire house down to making up my bed before he left to go to work, so that way I can come home to a clean house. He loved animals and he loved cats. He had a love for tattoos just like I did. He loved his nieces and he loved his sisters and he loved his family. He was never upset and he always saw the good in people. Even if you did him wrong, he forgave you. He was funny, he was loving, caring, and humble. He would spend his entire check on his nieces and to help me out with bills before he even used it on himself. He was clumsy, something his nieces inherited from him, along with his face. I remember thinking how I taught him how to read when he was 4, and it turns out he had actually just memorized the book. But he was smart, and he was brave, and I would not have gotten through a lot of shit in California without him being here with me. I just want to thank him and hug him for everything he's done for me. I love you, and we love you. Rest in power. Thank you.
So what did you say? Say his name.
So what did you say?
So what did you say? Say his name.
So what did you say?
Say his name.
So what did you say?
Digan su nombre.
So what did you say?
Digan su nombre.
So what did you say?
Digan su nombre.
So what did you say?
Ashe.
Ashe.
Next, we want to introduce the family of Kenny Watkins.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am the mother of Kenny Watkins. Kenny was the life of life. And what I mean by that, there's some people that are in life for the party, and there's some people that are in life of happiness, but he was life. If you could look at a dictionary and see a picture of life, that was him. He had a smile that was immaculate, that you would never forget. I know people that have met him one time and can say numerous things about him. And I know people that know him all his life, and they can say as equal as what the other people can say. But on Tuesday, August 16, 2016, the first day of LA Unified School, I had just been released from the hospital for having a baby. And I'm picking up my other 2 daughters. I have 3 daughters, but this is one, and then there's an older one. And we were doing our rounds, picking everyone from school. So he wanted to get it, and he was on Century and Figueroa, where his barber is on Broadway and Broadway and Century. Is that better?
Yeah.
So the moment I get to Broadway, there's multiple police cars. So I have to detour around the block, and I go around, and I see a motorcycle on the ground. And the first thing I say is, Lord bless whomever was in that accident. At the time, I didn't know it was a police motorcycle, nor was that the police officer, Evan Uraris, that killed my son. The traffic is directing us, and I finally, my oldest daughter get a Facebook post saying, rest in peace, Kenny. And I said, oh wow, because Lord knows it wasn't my Kenny. And then flutter of calls comes in, and pictures of him, and my father, my family, anyone that can know, and I get to Century and Figueroa. I was told that they believed he got out of a vehicle and he started walking eastbound on Century. The officer said, hey you, show me your hands. He looked back, there's a busy corner, he continued to walk. 3 houses, the police sped up on the motorcycle, drew his gun on a moving motorcycle with his right hand and fired 2 shots, shooting him in the back, traveling to his heart. Before my baby hit the ground, he was gone. There was a Latino lady in the house. She began to pray. When the police heard her scream, they immediately questioned her immigration status. That lady was deported before midnight. She was the epiphany of the witness who actually saw the whole thing occur. When I got to the scene, I was approached by an officer. He asked me, why did I think there was a random shooting in the area? Someone got hit, and according to HIPAA law, they couldn't disclose who the person was, but the person was transported to the hospital. I immediately sent one family member to the hospital to see if they could get any information. Then another officer came, and another officer came. Multiple, and I'll find out something for you. Something that you don't want to, that you can lose, and you will be okay for me to have. I handed him a picture. He looked at the picture and he gave it back, and that confirmed. Now, remind you, this was at 3:30 when school just let out. I stood there and waited. 4 o'clock came, 5 o'clock came, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, midnight hit. And an officer came over to me and said, come into the wagon. And that's when they told me. They had me sit out there for 9 hours before they told me it was my son that was actually murdered. Not only that, they picked him up before the coroner even arrived. They called the paramedics, and they did, a witness saw them cross their arm around their neck. Another paramedics came with the lights off, put him in the wagon, rolled him around the city for 30 minutes, checked him in the hospital, then they downtown as a suspect. So what previously occurred was that this all day. So they couldn't pin that on him. So he went from a victim to a suspect. Now he's back a victim. But the real thing is about the system. I was lucky to get to court in September 2017. And when we got to court, I was named not his mother. I was not acknowledged by his mother because the lawyer did not acknowledge me in front of the jury as his mother. So the judge stated, Judge Mary Ann Murphy stated that even whatever the verdict came back, it would have to be requested for appeal. During the time in court, they sat me next to the officer, Evan Uraris. He bragged about how he got promoted. He bragged about how he had, 3 days after my brother's death, which he was feared for his life, there was a wedding photo posted of him at his brother's wedding with all smiles and laughs, but he was afraid for his life. I came to find out that Evan Uraris was transferred to LAPD August 1st for murdering someone else in Van Nuys area on October of the year prior. Jackie Lacey did oversee his case, and she did not go forward to prosecute him. He was transferred down here August 1st. He was on the motorcycle team. He was still in training. And during the course, he was not supposed to derail from his partner. During the course of when he approached my son, his partner had kept traveling south on Figueroa. He had made a left when he saw him because he had on a blue windbreaker with a hood on it. He felt it was too hot for that type of clothing. He stated that my son was 5'9", 25 years old, and 189, 200 pounds. Kenny was 5'6", 131 pounds, and 18 years old. They stood around him in a circle, and the officer said, "Didn't you think that was, I never seen nothing like that." That's what the deputy told me over the phone. The worst part of after someone is passed that way is when you get into that court system and they brutally destroy you. I heard police officers snicker when they showed the autopsy photos. I heard them say things that were inappropriate. I had members of Black Lives Matters who had came to participate in the case. They were thrown out for drinking water during recess time. It's something that you never want to be a part of. It's something you never want to experience. It's a life. He's my oldest son, my firstborn, and it's a life that's ripped apart of you. Kenny was an amazing person. He played track and field, played football. He was really advanced in math. He had visions of opening his own school and having boys to collaborate with the sports and to academics. Just an exceptional person. And every day, And every day you have to learn to live without him. You have to try. Today I try, and if I don't do well, it's always tomorrow for me. It's nothing that can replace that. And I know a part of that was the first time I laughed after he passed. I felt guilty because I knew the pain that I had was so strong. You don't want others to feel that the pain is gone. But the fight, that's what keeps you alive. I learned that in 1970 that the LAPD had a big, massive discrimination case towards women and African and minorities, and they weren't promoting police officers. Guess who writes the curriculum for these police now? Those same men that were white men that were LAPDs in 1970s and 80s. They have transitioned to a position where they write the curriculum. So they know exactly what to tell these officers when they get caught in this. How you fear your life. You sit them down. They said the best thing for a witness is to get them immediately after the crime happened. Why are they allowed to sit for 6 to 10 hours in a cell by themselves so they can get their story straight? You have your pension, you have your wife, you have your children, you have a life to live. They get an opportunity to sit down to get their story straight. Not only that, we live in LA. When they go home to the Valley or Orange County, their neighbors don't know what they did. But we're sitting in our city and we know every day what they have done. It took a lady across the street to tell me, you know the police killed your son, before the police even said anything. A woman said, they killed your son. And it was at 4 o'clock. They took the son, when I buried him, they said, and so when we get the death certificate, they said undetermined. And then when they changed it, hands by another person, when they're supposed to put hands of an officer, because that acknowledged what they've done. That goes to the count of the city. It's not enough for Jackie Lacey to leave. It's not enough. We're at the point where we need to scare these young kids to let them know it's not okay. You need to go to college. You need to get in a career. You need to become a prosecutor. You need to become a police officer, because they're the ones. We need to police our own cities. We can't let other people that don't know who we are come into our city. And they come in our city and they destroy our families. Because it's not just the mother, it's not just the wife, it's the kids, it's the cousins, it's the people that they've encountering in life. And those people are all hurting. When we hurt as parents, we hurt for other people, mentally unstable. Other people don't understand why. And things happen. We need to scare these kids into knowing it's not okay and to become something in life. So they know who they're on the hiring team. They know who they're gonna hire. They know who they're gonna let in. It's not by accident they take a 20-year-old white male that never been around minorities, put him in for his first years of training, and then throw him on the streets of LA. Right. When most of us are in prison, whether we did it or not, that's not by accident. That's mentally training them to come out here and destroy us. So when is enough is enough. Right. But I'd like to thank everyone, and I am so sorry we met in this kind of arena. And I would like to thank the staff for just calling me and coming in contact and acknowledging my son. Because sometimes this happens so often that by the time one person is posted on the news on Tuesday, Friday someone else is up there posted on the news about an officer-involved shooting. So I'd just like to thank them for really coming out and looking for us and bringing us together and creating events like this to acknowledge our family. Thank you.
Kenny Watkins, say his name.
Kenny Watkins.
Say his name.
Kenny Watkins.
Say his name.
Kenny Watkins.
Digan su nombre.
Kenny Watkins.
Digan su nombre.
Kenny Watkins.
Digan su nombre.
Kenny Watkins.
I'm Sherry.
Introduce the aunt of Anthony Vargas.
Hi everyone. I just first want to take time to thank the organizers and the volunteers that took time out of their day and out of their lives to acknowledge not just my nephew, but all the victims of police violence. So thank you guys for all of you guys. On August 12th, 2018. Vargas was walking home from a friend's barbecue when he was targeted by 2 East Los Angeles sheriff deputies. Jonathan Rojas and Nicholas Perez, they targeted my nephew simply because of the area he was in. He was having a friend's barbecue in the Montevilla housing projects. And you know, these deputies took it upon themselves to harass my nephew, follow him, and they executed him. They shot him 13 times. He was shot 11 times in his back and 2 times in his head. Before they murdered my nephew, before they pulled their guns out and executed him, one of the deputies proceeded to punch my nephew multiple times in the head. They not only punched him in the head, they punched him in the ribs, they punched him in the side. Not once in the report did it say that my nephew fought back. These deputies claim that they feared for my life. My nephew's back was turned towards them. Anybody with their back facing you is not a threat to you. The police department, the East Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, is currently being investigated for having a deputy clique known as the Bandidos. There's no doubt in my mind that Jonathan Rojas and Nicholas Perez are members of that deputy clique. There's no doubt in my mind that they murdered my nephew as an initiation to get in that clique. You know, it's hard coming out here fighting. It's hard, you know, like the gun they found on him had no DNA. That was not my nephew's gun. That gun, I believe in my heart that gun was planted. My nephew lost his life for walking home from a barbecue. I'll never accept that. I will never accept that. I'll never accept the fact that my nephew is gone. You know, looking at the tombstone, I look at my nephew's face, and I look down here and I see the second victim that was shot by the same deputy that murdered my nephew. The same deputy that took my nephew's life a year later took another life by the name of George Serrano. If Nicholas Perez was disciplined, if he was charged for the murder of my nephew, George Serrano would still be here. George Serrano's family wouldn't be without their loved one the way I'm without my loved one. My nephew should be here today. He should be up here, you know, telling, you know, the stories of other loved ones. He shouldn't be on the tombstone over here. He shouldn't be over here with the name. It shouldn't be like this. You know, I just appreciate every single one of you guys. Because a lot of you have never lost a loved one to police brutality. You've never had a loved one murdered by law enforcement. But day in and day out, you guys show up. You show up for me. You show up for my nephew. And you show up for these families. I can't tell you guys how much that means to me. You know, as far as voting, it's important to vote. It's important to know who you're voting for. And it's important to just get involved. If Jackie Lacey is voted out, and I'm hoping and praying she is, George Gascon needs to know that if he doesn't do his job, we're coming for him too. To the East Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, because they watch our social media so frequently. They watch my nephew's page so frequently. To Jonathan Rojas and Nicholas Perez, you guys fuck with the wrong family. You mess with the wrong kids. I have a lot of fight in me. My 15-year-old son has a lot of fight in him. I have a lot of nephews and nieces that are ready to stand up and ready to fight for Anthony. His name will not be forgotten as long as we're around to remember it. Thank you guys. Anthony Vargas, say his name! Anthony Vargas! Say his name!
So now we're gonna have the family member of Kenneth Ross Jr.
Good afternoon, Black Lives Matter, Los Angeles, what's up? My name is Fazia Amru. I'm the mother of Kenneth Ross Jr., who was murdered by Gardena police officer Michael Robbins. This happened April 11, 2018 at Raleigh Park in Gardena. The officer shot Kenneth in his back with an AR-15 military assault weapon. What a fucking coward. My son was pronounced dead on the scene. The officer made jokes and said, "Turn off the cameras, this is gonna be a good one." Bitch motherfucker. Bitch motherfucker. Who you fucking with? They claim Kenneth was armed with a gun and they had to protect themselves. And come to find out this year, we finally got the video. After 2 years, Kenneth was not armed, and the officers that killed my eldest son in cold blood. Kenneth was the eldest son, and I have 6 children. They murdered him for nothing. The district attorney, Jackie Lacey, chose not to prosecute the officer. Does it surprise you? I am authentic. My ancestors, my son, and God are always right here with me. We must get rid of the devil, Jackie Lacey, now. I'm on an assignment to expose this bitch and get all these devils out of office, now. The damage these devils that did to me and my family, especially how my son Kenneth was murdered in cold blood for doing nothing, absolutely nothing. And all the other families who have lost a child due to the police that have also murdered them. They are 626 murders committed by these killer cops, and they killed them in cold blood. What kind of human beings allow these cops not to be prosecuted? I have power in my spiritual roots to destroy these demonic people. This bitch Jackie Lacey must go and will go now. She has accepted money and supported these killer cops and chose not to prosecute these murderous cops. She's a sellout, not just to all of us that has a child stolen due to murder by cops, but also a district attorney for California, where she has done nothing but locked up and charged innocent people for crimes they have not committed. Like I said before, if it's the last thing I do, I will make sure she's getting the fuck out of here. I don't know where you're going, bitch, and don't give a fuck. Because if it was left up to me, you would be going to hell with gasoline draws. I've been out here since day one, fighting to get justice for my son, and will get justice. And have this cop, Michael Robbins, prosecuted, and help support all the families that have gone through what me and my family are going through. That bitch needs to be charged with accessory to these murders. All dirt comes to light, and now you are exposed, bitch. Let karma deal with you, and hopefully you will end up in jail with the rest of these killer cops you have been protecting. So for the record, fuck Jackie Lacey. Fuck Jackie Lacey.
Fuck Jackie Lacey.
Fuck Jackie Lacey.
Fuck Jackie Lacey.
And fuck all these prejudiced, racist cops that have been killing our people for years. But now you will be exposed and pay the price. And I won't even have to put a finger on you, bitch. even one finger. My words are powerful, and I will destroy you. God will handle the rest. Do you hear me? God will handle the rest. My life will never be the same since they murdered Kenneth. I love and miss him dearly, and know he will always be here with me, looking over me, protecting me. And as you know, I had Kenneth when I was just a young woman, 18 years old. Just 18. He was the most kindest spirit I have ever known. We grew up together and had so many good memories. We were always happy and having a good time. No matter what was going on, he was the real one. He was my real boy. There's nothing Kenneth wouldn't do for me. He was very protective over me and seen a lot of violence due to my abusive relationships. He was a real man at a young age. And because he was the closest to me in my life, we loved each other so much. He would always say, I would take care of you and your children, when he was only 12 years old. And believe me, if you knew Kenneth, you already knew, because he was already doing it. And Dave, listen to music, talk, and have plans for our future. Kenneth was an avid skateboarder. He had been skateboarding since he was 8 years old. We were always hanging at Venice Beach in so many places. He almost went pro as a skateboarder. Kenneth had a lot of dreams for us, and his love was like no other. I love him and know he is proud of me, because we've been fighting against these devils all our lives. So I'm here to say, fuck Jackie Lacey, fuck the police, fuck Trump, and fuck Biden too. He's a racist too. In case you don't know. Don't put me in a predicament where I gotta pick fucking Joe fucking Biden, got his name, fuck him too. And Trump already knows he's a piece of shit. He's gonna get the fuck out. White supremacists, they just want to make money and use innocent people of color. They have been doing it for years, and change must come now, right now. Not yesterday, right now. These people that they put in office are all corrupt. And we must fight and never stop fighting to get justice for ourselves and our families. I will be out here fighting to get justice for Kenneth. I'm not going nowhere. I'm never going nowhere until I get justice for my son, Kenneth Ross Jr., and they prosecute this killer cop. I will continue to stand up and speak my mind and let these motherfuckers know they don't know who they're fucking with. They don't have a fucking clue. I am Kenneth Jr.'s mother. I will fight to get all these white, racist, supremacists, and killer cops off the streets. Whose streets are these?
Our streets!
Whose streets are these?
Our streets!
When we fight,
We win!
when we fight,
We win!
when we fight,
We win!
I am a black mother. I am a proud mother. I am the mother of Kenneth Ross Jr. Kenneth Ross Jr., say his name. Kenneth Ross Jr.